Highlife music is hailed as the heartbeat of Ghana, but its roots run deep into the soil of ancient traditions. Can you paint a picture of how music was woven into daily life across Ghanaian communities before colonial times?
Absolutely. For centuries, music wasn't a separate pursuit, it was the soundtrack to every ritual, from birth to rainmaking. Dance dramas with drums, bells, and layered hand claps marked naming ceremonies, weddings, and even funerals. Each beat was a living chronicle, carrying messages and memories across generations.
It's fascinating how music was both sacred and social. Were there unique instruments or styles specific to certain ethnic groups, like the Akan or A, that laid the foundation for Highlife's evolution?
Definitely. The talking drums of the Akan, the energetic Agbatsa of the U, and the Kamalogo rhythms of the Ga all contributed intricate polyrhythms. Traditional xylophones, flutes, and rattles formed the backbone, each community boasting its own master drummers and storytellers. This diversity became the fertile ground from which Highlife would later spring.
As colonial powers arrived, Ghanaian music didn't exist in a vacuum. How did European contact, especially with the British, start to reshape these indigenous rhythms?
European influence was profound. British colonization brought Christian hymns, military brass bands, and ballroom melodies. Ghanaian musicians working in colonial institutions or churches absorbed these sounds, but they reinterpreted the thematic syncopation and infusing traditional drumming, creating a vibrant cross-cultural blend.
So, rather than erasing tradition, colonial encounters sparked innovation. Would you say the ability to adapt was key to Highlife's birth?
Absolutely. Adaptation was at the heart of it. In towns like Cape Coast and Elmina, African musicians learned to read music and play Western instruments, but they bent the notes, merged styles, and kept the Ghanaian pulse alive.
Transitioning from colonial institutions, let's talk about the palm wine bars along Ghana's coast. How did these informal spaces catalyze the rise of a new musical style?
Palm wine bars became creative incubators. Sailors and laborers gathered, sharing stories over the sweet drink. Crew sailors from Liberia and Sierra Leone introduced guitars, and local musicians blended guitar riffs with folk lyrics and rhythms. The result was palm wine music-ra, relatable and deeply rooted in everyday struggles.
It's striking how music of the streets, not the salons, sparked this revolution. Did palm wine music remain a working-class phenomenon, or did it eventually transcend social boundaries?
Initially, it was the anthem of fishermen and laborers, but its infectious melodies soon crossed class lines. Palm wine music set the stage for Highlife by making music accessible, participatory, and reflective of Ghanaian realities.
As Ghana urbanized, brass bands and dance orchestras gained prominence. How did these ensembles merge Western styles like waltz and foxtrot with indigenous rhythms to shape early Highlife?
Brass bands, inspired by military parades, became popular in towns like Winneba and Accra. Local musicians quickly mastered trumpets and trombones, but instead of playing strict European marches, they infused them with Ghanaian syncopation and rhythm. Dance orchestras, like the Excelsior Orchestra founded in 1914, played ballroom tunes but always included local storytelling and groove.
So, would you say this fusion made Highlife both festive and familiar, appealing to a cross-section of society?
Exactly. This blend created a sound that was cosmopolitan yet deeply rooted. It reflected both aspiration and identity, making it irresistibly danceable and emotionally resonant for Ghanaians from all walks of life.
The term Highlife itself is intriguing. How did this label, initially associated with the elite, become the name for a genre that captured the entire nation's imagination?
Originally, Highlife referred to the lavish dances in colonial clubs, where only the wealthy could afford entry. Outsiders watched enviously and dubbed it Highlife music. But as local bands reinterpreted the style, it moved beyond the gates. Highlife became the soundtrack of weddings, funerals, and marketplaces, truly democratizing the sound.
That's a powerful story of cultural transformation. Did Highlife's accessibility help it serve as a unifying force across Ghana's diverse ethnic landscape?
Absolutely. Unlike many tribal music forms, Highlife was interethnic and standardized. It became the people's music sung by bread sellers, students, and professionals alike, making it a core part of Ghanaian identity.
Let's spotlight some pivotal figures. How did innovators like Jacob Sam and E.T. Mensah redefine highlife, and what lasting impact did their work have?
Jacob Sam Okwame Asare was a true trailblazer. He took the guitar, borrowed techniques from the traditional seprua, and crafted heartfelt songs about love and struggle. His 1928 recording of Ya Amponza set the guitar band highlife blueprint. Later, E.T. Mensah's blend of swing, calypso, and traditional Ga rhythms turned highlife into a symbol of unity and independence, especially with songs like Ghana Freedom.
Mensah's music wasn't just entertainment, it became a national anthem. How did these pioneers influence other West African musicians and the broader musical landscape?
E.T. Mensah's Tempos Band became the model for dance bands across West Africa, inspiring artists from Nigeria to Sierra Leone. Their legacy endures in the mosaic of modern African pop.
Beyond dance halls, highlife found another life in concert parties and guitar bands. How did these groups use music and theater to comment on Ghanaian society?
Concert parties wove together music, drama, and humor, often improvising on current events or gossip. Leaders like E.K. Nyame merged guitar band highlife with stage performance, addressing everything from political tensions to daily struggles. It was grassroots storytelling, accessible, adaptive, and deeply relevant.
It sounds like these performances were both cathartic and unifying during turbulent times, especially around independence. Would you say concert parties helped highlife remain resilient and responsive to change?
Absolutely. Concert parties made highlife a living, breathing commentary on Ghanaian life. They kept the genre fresh and connected to the pulse of the people, ensuring its survival through social upheaval.
As we look at highlife today, it's clear its legacy endures. How does highlife continue to shape modern Ghanaian identity and music culture?
Highlife is still everywhere, from weddings and funerals to city festivals and radio hits. Its melodies evoke nostalgia, unity, and pride, reminding Ghanaians of their roots while inspiring new generations. Contemporary artists sample highlife, blending it with hip-hop and Afrobeats, keeping its spirit alive and evolving.
So, like the resilient palm tree at its origins, highlife stands tall, deeply rooted, yet ever-reaching. What do you see as highlife's future in Ghana and across Africa?
With its rich history and adaptability, highlife will remain a wellspring for creative expression. As Ghana and Africa continue to change, highlife's rhythms and stories will keep echoing, connecting past, present, and future.
Ghana's music is not just music. It is memory, it is movement, and it is meaning. It began not in a studio, but under the sky. Among the trees. Around firelight. In the clapping of hands, the thumping of feet, and the rhythmic breathing of a people in sync with the land they called home. Long before the world placed Ghana on a map, the land we now call Ghana was already singing. Every tribe, every region, every moment of life, from birth to death, from war to peace, had a sound. A rhythm. A message. There was no written score. There were no awards. But there was soul. And soul cannot be manufactured. In the Akan tradition, music is the breath of ceremony. Adawa drums speak to the spirits. The Keith ensemble, with its intricate rhythms, directs the royal dance. In the U heartland, Agbadza fills funeral grounds with sound that is sorrowful yet celebratory. because to die is to return. GA people use Gom and Kpan logo rhythms to speak in celebration. The Dagara use Jil xylophones to heal. For the Dagamba, music is history, preserved and passed down through praise chants and drumming patterns that narrate genealogy, migration, conquest. Music was never a luxury. It was survival. It taught children who they were. It reminded elders of who they had been. It kept the community united. It even made war beautiful, at least in its memory. But as time moved, so did sound. The 19th century ushered in a new world. Colonialism imposed not only borders and bureaucracy, but brass bands and ballroom music. Christian missionaries arrived with hymns, choirs, and four-part harmony. The European influence didn't erase African rhythm, it melted into it. And what came out of that melting pot was something the world would come to know as highlife. Highlife music is not one sound. It is many sounds in one soul. It was born on Ghana's coast, where black sailors and Caribbean migrants danced to guitars and horns. But as it grew, it evolved. Highlife became the language of Ghanaian aspiration, the dream of sophistication, style, and success. By the 1930s and 40s, Ghana had begun producing homegrown highlife musicians. There was the palm wine tradition, soft acoustic guitar music performed by working-class men in bars and social gatherings. It was intimate, humble, and laced with indigenous melodies. Kwame Asare, also known as Jacob Sam, and E.K. Nyam were among the trailblazers of this form. Then came the dance bands, big orchestras with brass, percussion, and formal arrangements. In this arena, one name rose above all, E.T. Mensah. The man who would be crowned the king of highlife. He was not just a musician, he was a movement. With his band, the Tempos, E.T. Mensah defined the 1950s with upbeat, jazzy, trumpet-heavy songs that embodied hope, freedom, and fun. Ghana gained independence in 1957, and highlife was there to sing it into being. The soundtrack of a new republic. A young Kwame Nkrumah, himself a music lover, embraced it as part of the national identity. Highlife was modern, yet African. Elite, yet accessible. Sophisticated, yet grounded. By the 1960s and 70s, highlife splintered and spread. We had guitar band highlife, led by the likes of Nana Ampadu, Alex Konadu, and K. Jayasai, musicians who traveled across towns, playing with simple setups but deep lyricism. They sang about love, betrayal, community, corruption. They were the griots of their time. Then there was Burger Highlife, a diasporic twist that emerged from Ghanaians living in Germany in the 1980s. Artists like George Darko added synthesizers, drum machines, and funk elements, creating a danceable, electronic highlife that carried nostalgia and modernization in the same breath. Highlife was no longer just a genre. It was a nation's mirror. But music, like history, never stays still. The youth were restless. The cities were changing. The radio waves were globalizing. And by the 1990s, something new was knocking at the door. Rap. Hip-hop had made its way from the Bronx to the globe, and Ghanaian youth, especially those in Accra and Kumasi, embraced it like fire in dry grass. But there was one problem, the accent. The Americanism. The disconnection from local culture. Then came Reggie Rockstone. A young Ghanaian artist who had lived in London, Reggie returned and did something no one expected, he rapped in Twi. It was bold. It was unheard of. It was magic. He called it hip life, a blend of hip-hop and highlife. And just like that, a new era was born. Hip life was Ghanaian youth culture in audio form. It was witty, edgy, socially aware, and streetwise. It was the language of taxis, playgrounds, and chop bars. It belonged to the people. Obrafour emerged with deep poetic flow. Lord Kenya combined rap with highlife harmony. Exdo and Chicago, VIP, Msbel, Tinny, the list grew longer by the day. Hip life was not just a genre. It was a generation claiming its space. The 2000s saw it explode. Artists like Sarkodie took it to another level, blending tree rap with crisp production and international flair. D-Black, Edem, Okiami Kwame, and Guru diversified the sounds and topics. Hip life matured, even as it evolved. At the same time, other genres were emerging from within. Gospel took center stage with powerful voices and soul-stirring anthems. Joe Metal, Daughters of Glorious Jesus, Sonny Badu, Diana Hamilton, they brought healing and hope to churches, schools, and crusade grounds across the country. Reggae and dancehall found a foothold. Kojo Anchi's reggae-infused love ballads. Samanai's smooth blend of dancehall and Afrobeats. Shadow Whale's aggressive reinvention of the genre. Stoneboy's Grammys and global reach. By the 2010s, Ghanaian music was a mosaic. Afropop, trap, drill, R&B, amapiano influences, all living together. The youth were now global citizens, but still proudly Ghanaian. And in the middle of this sonic maze, quietly, humbly, someone else was emerging. His name? Ray. No flashy chains. No entourage. No internet beef. Just sound. Clean, honest sound. Ray grew up in Accra, in a world of both contrasts and convergence. His father loved highlife. His older sister blasted Brandy and Craig David. Ray's first heartbreak came while Bryson Tiller played in the background. His childhood memories are filled with both Adawa drums at funerals and trap soul in headphones. He never set out to be a star. But music never gave him a choice. It followed him. Called him. Haunted him, softly. Ray sings R&B, but not in the borrowed American way. His melodies glide like Usher, but his tone holds the warmth of Kojo Anchi. His lyrics move between English and Twi, GA, and Pidgin, like a young man truly born of Accra's ever-blending culture. He sings about loneliness. About hope. About rejection. About mental health. About dreams so big they terrify you. He doesn't scream. He whispers. He croons. He lets the silence do half the work. To Ray, music isn't about virality. It's about memory. He doesn't want a hit song. He wants a timeless song. A song someone plays on a rainy Tuesday in 2035 and still feels understood. In an era where shock sells, Ray chooses sincerity. In a world chasing noise, Ray crafts quiet power. He's currently working from a small studio in Medina. His producer is a childhood friend. His manager is his cousin. Everything is small, except the dream. He says, "I just want to be a voice that feels like home." Ghana deserves to have R&B that sounds like Ghana. Not fake. Not foreign. Just real. And he's not alone. A new wave of Ghanaian artists are exploring genres previously considered un-Ghanaian. R&B, soul, indie, acoustic folk. But Ray stands out, not because he's the loudest, but because he's the clearest. He embodies something we rarely talk about in Ghanaian music: stillness, vulnerability, emotion without excess. And perhaps that's what makes him special. Perhaps that's why this moment matters. Because every generation needs someone to carry the sound forward. Someone who listens to the past but sings toward the future. Someone who understands the weight of the rhythm, and still chooses to dance. Ray might just be that someone. So here we are. 100 years of Ghanaian music. From talking drums to trap beats. From funeral dirges to festival anthems. From oral tradition to Spotify playlists. The journey has been long, layered, and luminous. And it's not over. Because music never ends. It only evolves. And Ray, he's the echo of everything we've been, and the whisper of everything we might become. So press play. Close your eyes. And listen. The next voice of Ghana is already singing.